Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Sip Allen, and I am here once again with my cohorts in crime, Mr. Andrew Cabral and Stephen Billings. We're in the midst of the MLB playoffs, the Major League Baseball playoffs. We've been talking about doing something with baseball movies for quite a while now. Stephen's got a history in baseball. Andrew and I are huge baseball fans. We love the Boston Red Sox. That's our team, even though I'm wearing a Patriots hat and he's wearing a Celtics hat. So we really have been wanting to do baseball themed episode of the Top 5 Weekly for quite a while, since the beginning of the show, really. And so we decided, instead of doing baseball movies, we'll do baseball characters in movies. And there is thousands of them. There's so many different characters we could choose from. And so this is going to be a fun episode because we're gonna have to defend why we picked this specific character over that character and what movie they represent and so forth. So it's going to be a lot of fun. These guys always bring a lighthearted atmosphere to the show. So, I always like to drag them back on every week. So with that, Andrew, introduce yourself.
Yes, dragging is the key word in that sentence because Stephen and I owe a life debt to Dan. That's why we're here every single week. But no, we are here this week to discuss baseball movies or baseball characters in movies. So it's going to be a little interesting. I know Stephen and I have talked about baseball. Dan and I have talked about baseball. I mean, it is the national pastime. It's America's sport, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something I grew up watching a lot of baseball and then baseball related movies. So it's always something that I think has been around. It's not something that I've always gravitated greatly towards, oh, I can't, this is an amazing baseball movie, you've got to see it or something like that. But baseball's always kind of been there with me throughout my youth. And I think it's generational as you go on, if someone in your life liked a sport, chances are they'll push that onto you, and then so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting cultural thing when it comes to sports, and particularly baseball.
Yeah, you said it. You said it fantastic. I couldn't have said it any better, Andrew. And Mr. Stephen Billings.
Yes. Finally, we are talking about the only sport that matters, baseball, the awesome. There's something, to me, the thing with baseball is it's to me one of the only sports that has a romantic quality to it. I feel like you got football that's like fucking violent and, just hitting each other. And that's why people watch it, because it's violent, and hockey's violent, and basketball, it's okay. And, we can go through all the sports, but baseball's got something about it. There's a gracefulness to it. There's just something about it that's just romantic. You never know what's going to happen. And baseball, to me, makes for some very interesting movies. Not always the best movies, but they can make for some, fun times at the theaters. I don't know what to tell you. I love baseball. Baseball!
Yeah, these guys are going to be having a lot of fun on this episode. With that being said, let's get this show on the road. Stephen, you have the honors, mister, with number 5. Wow. Just as I say, Stephen.
Oh, no, he's gone.
He's gone. Just as I say, Stephen, he's gone. So, because of that, let's start with Andrew.
Okay, I am your default pick. I understand. I am the pinch hitter, and with the whole baseball reference. But my number 5 is a bit of a nostalgia pick for myself. It's not the best baseball movie in the world. It's not something that is, I think, going to be remembered greatly. But when I was a kid, I kind of wished I was this character in this movie, and that is the character of Henry Rowan Gardner in Rookie of the Year, portrayed by Thomas Ian Nicholas, who went on to do a bunch of things in his career. He was in the American Pie movies, and he's still actually acting today. He pops up every now and then. But when I was a kid, he was this character. I watched this movie over and over again. And for those of you not familiar with this film, basically he's a kid who breaks his arm, and then as his arm is healing, the tendons in his arm are so stiff that it's almost like a slingshot. He could put his arm back and just fire a fastball in there at a huge speed, maybe like 99 or 100 miles an hour. It's ridiculous. And lo and behold, the Chicago Cubs get wind of him, and so they sign him as almost a publicity stunt, but he ends up being like their starting pitcher, and it's a very interesting, weird film. But I always idolized it because I wanted to be this kid. I wanted to play for some major league team and be this kind of rookie wonder. The film also stars Gary Busey plays a pitcher in it. Dan Hedaya, I think, is in it as well. It's a really great film. I think you have to watch when you're a kid. It's not something that I think a lot of adults will watch for the first time and really get why it's so nostalgic for a lot of us. But without going into it too much, that's my number 5, a pure nostalgia pick.
Yeah, Disney seemed to corner the market on these quirky, oddball, interesting little family-oriented sports comedies, and specifically like baseball with Angels in the Outfield and all these movies. I guess they just thought they were like a family kind of thing, and that people would enjoy them. So that was the thing. And Thomas Ian Nicholas was in a movie that came out last year called a little indie movie based right here where I live called Disney Before Disney, and that I was weird seeing him in my hometown walking around in old 40s and 50s clothing and stuff like that, trying to film a movie. But him and the guy from Napoleon Dynamite. But Steven, it's your turn now. Well, for the second time, it's Steven's turn because I came to you earlier,
yeah,
Steven.
You know what? My computer glitched for a minute. It jumped. I went to sleep for some reason. I think my battery's going to die on me soon. I have to replace the battery. But my number 5, coincidentally, is the same movie, but a different character, and it is Brigma, played by Daniel Stern. Okay, Brigma is one of these characters that is still awesome. When the Cubs won the World Series last year, we even got Brigma popping up. He was like, I want to, be the hitting coach I want to be on the Cubs. They made a video with Daniel Stern, and he was like, I want to be in there. He's like, Brigma's still cool. He's still cool. He's this guy that's like this hitting coach, but he's really not that good. They just kind of they keep him there because he's like good for morale. He's like, he hypes up the players. He's an idiot, but he's fun. And Daniel Stern is hilarious in this. He's also a guy that you've seen him in Home Alone, City Slickers. He's done other work like that you've known. But I really always thought Brigma was one of my favorite characters from that film. He's just so ridiculous. He's always got like a bunch of sunflower seeds in his mouth, and he's rah, rah, he's just freaking crazy. He's nuts, and he thinks he can hit, and he goes in the cage and he tries to hit, and then the ball pops up and hits him on the head. He's a fun character. I love Brigma. Brigma, Rookie of the Year, my number 5.
Yeah, that's odd. I didn't expect 2 characters from Rookie of the Year.
It's a classic, man. It's a classic.
I know it is. I'm going to go with a real person. I'm going to go with a real human being portrayed by one of the biggest stars in Hollywood today. And that is, my number 5 is Billy Beane, portrayed by Brad Pitt in Moneyball. I'll tell you what, I read this book that this movie is based on, and to understand the numbers and the things that go into getting on base and striking out and batting average and all the things that go into the game of baseball, the numbers, Billy, he ends up having his 3 biggest players, his big star players, leave the Oakland A's, Jason Giambi, Johnny Damon, and Jason Isringhausen, and they go to the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Giants, or whoever. And so he has to figure a way under the amount of money at the time was something like $38 to $41 million that he had, that his Mr. Schott, the owner of the Oakland A's, gave him for a budget. So he had to put a winning team out on the field. And he goes to the Indians and he tries to talk to the Indians about trading for this guy named Carlos Rincon. And while he's doing it, he sees this little kind of guy on the side who's crunching the numbers and telling the GM of the Indians, no, you don't want to get rid of that guy, you don't want to. And he ends up seeking this guy out, and Jonah Hill plays that guy, but he is so competitive. Billy Beane is such a competitor. He wanted to put a winning team that this formula, this kind of mathematical formula about men getting on base via the walk and not stealing bases and not bunting and not giving up outs was like this newfangled thing in baseball. And they ended up breaking the all-time wins record in the history of baseball with 20 wins in the summer of, I think, 2003 or 2004, in that summer, I believe. Go ahead, Andrew.
I thought it was 2001, but I have to look it up.
It could be. It's around there somewhere. And Brad Pitt really brings a lot of heart because his character was a baseball player and he failed. He was a failed baseball player, so he ends up getting in as a scout and whatnot, and then eventually rises to be the general manager of the Oakland A's. But then he's also trying to be successful for his little daughter, who he wants to provide for him and give her a life. And she gets her a guitar and she sings this just fantastic song, which I will not say the name of the song because I can't remember, but if you watch Moneyball, you'll know the song. It's a really, really, oh man, heartfelt song. They sing it twice in the film, at the end of the movie and near the beginning of the movie. But yeah, I'll tell you what. If your heartstrings are not pulled by Billy Beane, Brad Pitt's Billy Beane in this film, and what he was able to do with a franchise that's a perennial failure of a team, and just figure a way to win games and have the all-time baseball wins record in a row, then I don't know what I could say about you. But I'll tell you what. This is what's his face. Bennett Miller directed it, and Aaron Sorkin wrote the script. So there's a lot of witty banter and a lot of dire. Also, rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in the movie as well. So he plays coach of the Oakland A's, Art Howe, and a guy that's not perennial first baseman, played for the Boston Red Sox. His name is Scott Hatteberg. He was portrayed in the film by Chris Pratt, and they said, all right, we're going to move you to first base. We want you to play for us because he could get on base. And so Chris Pratt, that was his big breakout role in movies, was Moneyball. So I had Billy Beane, portrayed by Brad Pitt, as my number 5. All right, Andrew, going back to your number 4.
Yeah, that's a great pick because it is based on a true story. And Billy Beane, after that season, was offered a gigantic contract to come and be the GM for the Red Sox. Boo. And he turned it down. He turned it down to stay in Oakland, and they ended up getting Theo Epstein. Yeah, it was like a big gigantic contract.
Yeah,
and he stayed small.
It was like the largest contract offered to a general manager at the time, $12.5 million for a GM. That's how much the Red Sox valued him to come over and be their general manager. And they hired the guy that he based this whole concept on, which he had already come up with this guy, but he was ostracized in the game of baseball. But the Red Sox hired the guy, and then they ended up getting Theo Epstein instead. And the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is, unfortunately, the whole Moneyball strategy didn't really pay off in the long run for Billy Beane and the Oakland A's. So it's a nice story that encapsulates the time, the early 2000s. I think it was 02 or 03, around there. I'm a little off, but it's a very it's a great movie. Great movie. You can't beat an Aaron Sorkin script. But for my number 4, I'm going with, once again, a fictional character. I didn't really put that together, but kind of my whole list is a fictional character. But anywho, I'm going with another nostalgic pick. This whole list is going to be just favorites of mine. And I'm going to go with a character from the perennial classic, if you were a kid, specifically a young boy growing up in the 90s, and that is The Sandlot. But I'm going to go with one of the characters that's not the main character, but he's kind of the kid everyone idolizes. And that is, what's his name? Benny the Jet Rodriguez. And he is a character that like I said, all the kids look up to him. He's the kid you want to be when you're a kid. He's just cool. You know, he's great at sports. He's athletic. He's a good-looking kid. He's just cool, man. And when you're a kid and you're someone like Smalls or some of the other kids, you look up to him because he is the epitome of what you want to be. And when I was a kid, there were kids like that. There was always a kid that was cool and he was good at every kind of sport. Like, and it's not like he trained or anything. That's one of the great things about this movie is that none of these kids like play like regular Little League baseball or anything like that. They're just regular street kids who happen to be good at baseball. And I just find that really funny. And it's a wonderful coming of age story for all the kids in the film. And it's done in a very Stand By Me way. It's not quite as deep as Stand By Me or anything like that. It does have like narration throughout the film, and it does have a narration at the end that tells you where these kids ended up. And spoiler alert for a film that came out in 1993, the Benny character ends up making it to Major League Baseball. He ends up becoming a professional baseball player. And sometimes you run into kids like that who end up making it. You know, it's really hard to make it in any professional sport, let alone Major League Baseball. But sometimes you end up growing up just randomly with somebody who just has that magical talent. And I've always liked how Benny was kind of the leader of all the kids. You know, he's the one who's brave enough to go over the fence to get the Babe Ruth ball, to run away from, you know, the giant dog that they call Beast, I believe. But it's really not that big. But when you're a kid, you know, you make things bigger than what they are. It's a great film, especially if you're a young kid. It's one of my favorites, and it's one I rewatch constantly. Just to get some of that magic. They made a couple of sequels, I think, but those were like straight to DVD sequels with like none of the kids, I don't think. And it's they
didn't make any sequels.
You sure? I thought they made The Sandlot too.
I'm being facetious. They don't.
Steven's making a funny, everyone. Yeah, they did not make a sequel. Just like there's no Rocky V, and there's no Kingdom of the Crystal Skull either. So yeah, so it's all in the ether out there, in that magical place where sequels go to die. And yeah, so that's my number 4 without talking about it even more.
And there's no Mighty Ducks 2 and 3 either.
Mighty Ducks 2 is freaking good.
They played those games. I forgot what they were called.
I knew I was going to hit a sore spot for Steven there.
Yeah, Mighty Ducks 2 is better than 1.
Is it? Okay. All right. Yeah, I got a one of the members of the Sandlot on my honorable mentions, Andrew, but I don't want to, just in case Steven has somebody from there, I don't want to say it and take away his thunder. So I don't want to say it just yet until we do honorable mentions. So Steven, what's your number 4?
Well, apparently Andrew like got my list and like it copies like copying off of it or something. Like he's like son of a bitch. But mine once again is the same movie, but a different character. And mine is Hamilton Porter. Ham. He is my favorite character from that movie. Because I mean, honestly, when you think of Sandlot, what's the first character that comes to your mind? The fat kid. The fat kid. He's hilarious. And he of course went on to do other movies like The Big Green, which I love. That is a soccer movie. You know, he had a thing for playing in sports movies where he probably shouldn't be, you know, he isn't probably really that good, but he's in it. But he's hilarious in this movie. You know, I always every once in a while like to do, I can almost quote exactly the scene where they insult each other back and forth between the kids. Like you have the kids from like the high school that think they're better than the kids from the Sandlot, and they like come in and they're like, we're gonna, you know, we're better than you, and he's like, you can lick dirt off my lick dirt off my cleats. Watch it, jerk. Moron, scab eater, butt sniffer, puss licker, fart smeller. You play ball like a girl. And of course that ends it. You know. But yeah, I mean, there's not only that, but then there's, of course, when they go to the carnival, and of course, Chaw, you know, and of course he's trying to keep it in. He's just like, you know, just like he's everything he does in that movie, the facial features, everything. And of course, he's trying to be like Babe Ruth. He loves Babe Ruth. And there's the scene where he actually hits the home run, and everybody. I just love the character. Hamilton Porter. He's awesome. Go Ham. Sandlot number 4.
Yeah, that was my honorable mention. I had Hamilton Ham Porter, played by Patrick Renna. Patrick Renna actually had an appearance here in Orlando, and my friend Vinny didn't tell me about it, so I couldn't go meet the guy. But he was here in Orlando at an appearance not that long ago. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the Sandlot is you just dream of that lifestyle. When you're a kid, you're like, wow, wouldn't this be a fun freaking life for a kid to just have this kind of.
It's just like a pure American. It's like pure American, like childhood. That's what it is. Literally, there's a scene with the 4th of July, and you get like, a beautiful, spacious skies. It's so American.
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah, well, if I was actually singing, Dan, I wouldn't have to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Sandlot is just, I mean, everybody's. I have such nostalgia for the Sandlot. It just, I mean, I wish I had that upbringing that was portrayed in the Sandlot. What a great, fun time that was. But my number 4 is, you know, before the show, one of the panelists here, Andrew, said that I was going to have some obscure characters and some obscure, well, I have one obscure character on my list, but it's a movie that really means a lot to me, and it's a lot of people have not seen this movie, and I recommend that you do see it because it's a really good movie. It's a sad movie, but it's also a good movie, and it's called the name of the character that I want to spotlight here is his name is Bruce Pearson, and he's played by Robert De Niro, and the film that he is in is called Bang the Drum Slowly, and he plays a silent catcher who plays for the Brooklyn Monarchs, which is like a New York Yankees type of team. And his friend Michael Moriarty in the film, he kind of buddies up with him, and then he comes to find out that he has cancer. And the whole movie is basically the decline of this Bruce Pearson character. And they do like card games. They call it Tag War. You know, it's like a goofy card game where you keep one up on the other guy with some weird freaking, well, I got 5 4s and I got 4 diamonds, and you know, you can some goofy, but it's about this relationship between this pitcher and this catcher, between Michael Moriarty and Robert De Niro's characters, and how they really bond and become really close friends in a situation of a baseball team. You know, you have, when people were a little odd and out there, kind of people pick on them. And so Michael Moriarty kind of stood up for the Bruce Pearson character, and then come to find out he's got cancer and he's going to die. And so it is a sad movie, but it's a really cool, it's got some camaraderie, and you get to see a lot of the like locker room kind of stuff in baseball, the traveling on the road kind of stuff where the guys are going from one place to the other, and that sort of stuff about the game of baseball. And it's like a faux Yankees type of situation. But I recommend this if you're a Robert De Niro fan or a baseball fan or a movie fan. I recommend you check it out, Bang the Drum Slowly. I saw this when I was a kid, and I love the movie. It really had a lot of heart in it, pulled at my heartstrings because of the Bruce Pearson character played by Robert De Niro. So that's my number 4. And let's go to Andrew for number 3.
My number 3 is once again from a film I watched when I was young, probably too young to see it, because it is a rated R film, and I'm going to go with a character from Major League, and you could literally pick any one of them, and we could be on this list, but I'll go with the one that's perhaps the most well-known. I don't know, but it's the Charlie Sheen character of Ricky the Wild Thing Vaughn. And the reason why I picked this one is because just every time I hear the song Wild Thing, I just think of this movie. You know, every time it just like they're so married together that I could never separate the two. You know, it's like it's kind of like that cool thing. Like, well, how would you want to walk out if you had some type of entrance music? You know, it's like you want to pick a badass song. You want to pick a song that makes you feel like and look like and be like, you know, some badass dude. And they picked the song Wild Thing, and it's very appropriate for the Charlie Sheen character because he's like this really young, hot-headed guy who's kind of uncontrollable. He is a wild thing, and that also that is also part of his game. He is a closing pitcher, I believe, so he comes in and he's supposed to get the final out. But the problem is that he can't control his fastball. His fastball is absurdly fast, but he has no control over it whatsoever. And the film is more of an ensemble film than I would say a character film. But if there's one character I think that has an arc in it, the Ricky Vaughn character does. You know, he's someone who has to mature. He's got to, you know, take stock in his life. He's got to figure things out on a personal level. And I think a lot of the guys in the Major League have to do that as well. Certainly the Tom Berenger character who's playing this old catcher who's kind of getting towards the end of his career. He kind of has to make some peace with that. For those of you not familiar with Major League, it's one of probably the most well-known quintessential comedy sports films of all time, I would say. Definitely from the 90s. It's such a 90s film with a definite 90s cast. I mean, we have, like I said, Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, Rene Russo is in the movie, Wesley Snipes is in the movie. So it's a film filled with great character actors as well. But yeah, that's my number 3, and it's a film that I saw way too young. I didn't get a lot of the jokes when I was a kid. It's a lot of vulgar comedy and stuff like that. But as I've gotten older and rewatched it, I can definitely understand why this is really, really funny.
Yeah, I mean, Major League, I think I had 1 or 2 characters myself on my honorable mention. They just kind of missed the list. But I had a feeling that you or Andrew, you or Steven would have somebody or multiple characters from Major League on your list. So I figured it was worth my while to knock those guys off and let you guys talk about them. Steven?
Well, this time though, you missed on this one, and not a complete lineup here. I'm going with one. This is a movie I saw a lot growing up too, and I think it's still a very important baseball film, and that's called A League of Their Own. And I'm going with the Tom Hanks Jimmy Dugan character. I really love his character in this film. He plays this once very popular baseball player, played for the Cubs, was a great hitter, and then he blew his knee out, and then he became a drunk, you know, and now, you know, if you don't know the story of League of Their Own, you know, a lot of the Major League Baseball players have went off to the war, so the baseball season, Major League Baseball season, was canceled. So they start this women's league, and they want to get Jimmy Dugan to be a manager of the Rockford Peaches, and of course he does not take this seriously. You know, women shouldn't play baseball. You know, and that's part of why I think this is still a very important movie, because it's about women's rights and what women can do, and that's still something we're dealing with today. And I think the Jimmy Dugan character is just, not only does he have an arc where he goes from being somebody that's very much a almost a womanizer of sorts. He doesn't really have that much of a respect for women to spending time with these women and realizing that they can actually play baseball and gaining a respect and actually starting to take it seriously. And, of course, we can't forget the most famous line, in the movie that still get coined today, where one of the players misses a fly ball or misses a cutoff man or something like that. And he comes out and he yells at the player, and he's like, she starts crying. And then, the umpire gets involved. He's like, what's going on here? He's like, look, she's crying, sir. He's like, you should be, treat them like your mother. Oh, yeah, there's no crying. There's no crying in baseball. Like, my parents came down from here, and my manager called me a bunch of pig slop. And did I cry? No. Like, it's just fantastic. He's so great. It's Tom Hanks, guys. And, Jimmy Dugan, League of Their Own. If you have not seen the movie, you need to check it out. Gina Davis is also in it. She plays the catcher. She's awesome in the movie. There's a lot of great. Rosie O'Donnell's in the movie. Madonna's in the movie. Like, it's weird. Why is Madonna in this movie? But she's in it. Great film. Watch it.
Great choice. Another one that just missed the list for me. Jimmy Dugan. Classic Tom.
This was Jack Daniels.
My number 3 is based off a book I read when I was a kid. I was about 10 or 12 years old in there somewhere. And I was floored when I read this book, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to make a movie of this book. And I was just like so happy because I wanted to see this story portrayed on the big screen. And my number 3 is a character by the name of Roy Hobbs, played by Robert Redford. And wow, I absolutely love this film. I love the character of Roy Hobbs. It's a baseball story about kind of a guy that's like a traveling kind of a baseball player type of guy, and he ends up getting picked up by this team, another New York type team, the Knights. I think they're the New York Knights.
What's the name of the movie, Dan?
The Natural. And he's just kind of like a drifter type of character. And this team is awful. These guys, they just are a horrible team. They don't want to play. They don't have any motivation to play, a lot of the players. And you have a great cast in this film. The coach of the team is Wilford Brimley. You have Glenn Close, Kim Basinger, Robert Duvall is a writer. He's one of these, snake in the grass type of writers, always trying to find some dirt and twist what's going on the field and what's off the field and stuff. He's really a snake in the grass, Robert Duvall is. It's directed by Barry Levinson, and there's also a murder mystery going on within the context of this film. You may know the famous Hollywood story about the black veil, the lady in the black veil or whatever. Well, they kind of threw that storyline in Hollywood into this book, and so you have the story of the baseball team, but you also have this murder mystery where this lady she befriends like men, and she goes around and kills men. And if you haven't seen the movie, I won't give it away what's going on and stuff, but there is some romance with the Roy Hobbs character. But like Sandlot, like they're a League of Their Own, there are some great quotes and great moments in this film. And there was a very key moment in a baseball game where Roy Hobbs' character breaks his bat, and he tell this little ball boy kid he made a bat, and Roy goes, "Pick me out a winner, Bobby," and he picks him out the thunderstruck bat that he created, and he's got a lightning bolt on the bat and stuff. And of course, the classic moment where he hits the game-winning home run, goes up into the lights and breaks the lights, and there's everything all over the place. And it's just like, I mean, a phenomenal scene in movies. It's what movies are made of, really, to be honest with you. This scene, this moment in this film is why we love movies. This is kind of thing that makes movies so great. And Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford is just a great actor. He's at the top of his game during this time, in the late 70s and early 80s, So I had to have Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford from The Natural, as my number 3. Andrew, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is not a baseball player, but a baseball coach. And I'm going to go with Walter Matthau's character, Coach Morris Buttermaker in The Bad News Bears. I love this movie so damn much. I can watch it any time of the day, any moment that the movie is on. I can watch it from then till the end. It's just a fun, great movie to watch. And it's for those of you not familiar with it, basically Walter Matthau's character is like this just loser drunk type guy who doesn't really care about anything, and somehow some way he gets to be a coach of a little league baseball team, and these kids that are in it are basically just the rejects from the league. Nobody wants to coach this team because they're just all terrible. They're all like troublemakers. They're all just bad. You know what I mean? And he is someone who somehow, some way gets them to come together as a team and molds this team of riffraff kids into a winning Little League baseball team. And just some of the characters in this film are hilarious. They all have attitudes, they all have jokes, and it's just great. The film also stars Tatum O'Neal as Amanda Wurlitzer, who is a character who I believe is the daughter of one of Walter Matthau's ex-girlfriends, I believe. And she is kind of this ace pitcher. She's a great pitcher. Her curveball is like incredible. So he pretty much gets her to come on the team so she can be their ace pitcher. Then he recruits this kind of almost Arthur Fonzarelli type character in Kelly Leak, portrayed by a really young Jackie Earle Haley. And he's able to just take these two pillars and put them on the team and kind of mold the team around it. And it's a great team. It's a great character journey for the Walter Matthau character, kind of being, like I said, this schlubbish, drunky guy just drinking beers at practice, to actually caring about these kids and caring about them coming together as a team and actually playing some decent baseball. And it's a really kind of heartwarming story from that perspective, but it is predominantly a comedy, and it's a great entertaining comedy. Once again, they did sequels to this, and I never watched any of them because I heard they're not so good. I mean, it's one of those things, like we said earlier, they're out there in the ether somewhere if you want to see them. I think one of them, like, they go to Japan or some nonsense. I don't know. All I know is that this is the original. This is the best one. There was a remake directed by Richard Linklater. Billy Bob Thornton was the Walter Matthau character. It's funny. It's not a great movie. It's almost a shot-for-shot remake. It was kind of unnecessary, if you will, but it's a fun watch as well. But this is the original. Go back to this. It did come out in 1976, but I don't think it's aged really at all. I mean, Little League kind of still is what it is today. It's a bunch of teams with some good, some bad, and the kind of politics that are in there are still played out today. So it's definitely a worthy watch for today's audience.
Yeah, great choice. I love that version of the Bad News Bears. I had Walter Matthau on my honorable mentions. You just barely missed the list. But Steven, what is your number 2?
Well, back around to something that Andrew has already talked about, Major League. But I'm going with a different character. You could say religious man. Pedro Serrano. He's into voodoo. He's into hats for bats. It keeps bats warm. And yeah, he takes snakes and he does little rituals on his locker to make sure, he doesn't get knocked off the team. And he has a little friend named Joe Boo that he prays to before every game. And he is, if you're not sold on this character by now, I don't know what to do for you, because this is like, there's probably guys like this in Major League, like baseball, like that are so ritualistic about baseball that they'll do anything. There's and they make jokes about it through the whole movie. Like, like they ask for a chicken and they bring them a whole bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then something, and he doesn't hit well that night, and he's like, we should have got a live chicken. But Serrano is played by Dennis Haysbert. Yeah, Haysbert. He's also known for being the president of 24, which is the other thing I know him for being the president of the United States that I wish we had, but we probably will never have, because he's badass and he stands for good things. But he's a television character, so. But yes, Serrano, badass, can't hit the curveball, can hit fastballs pretty well, and hits home run. He's the home run guy. He's the typical guy that can hit a lot of home runs, strikes out a lot, but he's entertaining as hell. And my favorite scene is when at the end, when they need to get the lead, and it's a playoff game, and finally he's just like, you know what, Joe Boo, I'm gonna do this myself. Fuck you, Joe Boo. and then he hits the home run, and it's one of the moments. It's like kind of almost for me like The Natural, what Dan was talking about with The Natural, where it's a moment where you're just like, yes, like you feel it, you get chills, and literally they stay with Serrano like in the moment after he hits that home run. You actually get to stay with him as he's rounding the bases, and you see the crowd, they're just all on their feet, and it's just like so in the moment. I love it. It's a great film. It's if you're into sports movies, if you have not seen Major League, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. And Serrano is my favorite character, so that's my number 2.
Yeah. Like I said, I had like a couple characters from Major League on my honorable mentions, but I knew you guys would talk about them. I have a character that is portrayed in 2 movies, 2 very famous movies. The name of the character is Shoeless Joe Jackson, and he is portrayed in a dream sequence in one movie, and he's portrayed by an actor as he's a real character going through real life events in another movie. And the movie that he is portrayed in a dream sequence, Ray Liotta plays him in Field of Dreams. Now, everybody knows Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And out from the grass, the outfield corn, come these baseball players. And they play baseball on this field that this guy puts it in his farm, his cornfield. And they play baseball. One of those characters who's the leader of all these like classic, iconic baseball characters of the 1920s and 30s is Shoeless Joe Jackson, portrayed by a very young Ray Liotta. And he doesn't even look like Ray Liotta. To be honest with you, wouldn't even recognize him that it was Ray Liotta. You didn't know it was Ray Liotta. But then on the other hand, we have D.B. Sweeney, who plays Shoeless Joe Jackson in the famous Black Sox scandal in 8 Men Out, where the White Sox, because they weren't getting paid enough money for their like shares in the playoffs and whatnot, in the World Series and all this kind of stuff, they end up throwing the World Series. If you have people like, oh God, now I can't think of, Charlie Sheen is in that as well. Also, what is his name?
John Cusack.
John Cusack, my bad. John Cusack. Absolutely screwed that up. I got the list of the people that are in the movie right here, and I didn't want to look at my list, because I felt like it wasn't the right thing to do to look at my list. But a lot of great actors are in 8 Men Out, and of course, Field of Dreams has got one of the all-time great baseball movies. But I thought, well, Shoeless Joe Jackson was just such an interesting character because you got the real life Shoeless Joe Jackson character portrayed in a movie, and then you have this dream sequence of a Shoeless Joe Jackson. So I thought, well, that'd be a cool way to talk about two movies in one character. So that's why I put Shoeless Joe Jackson. And if I'm sure these guys might, I don't know if they're going to talk about Field of Dreams or 8 Men Out, but I just felt like that was the right thing to do. So that's why I have Shoeless Joe Jackson at number 2. So going back to Andrew.
Yes. My number 1, big old number 1. It's a character from a film that Steven has already talked about, so I'm throwing it back at him. And it's not the Jimmy Dugan character, although that is a great character. I'm going to go with the Gina Davis character, Dottie Hinson. I always thought the film was kind of a character journey for her. It is, like you said, it is an ensemble, very much so.
Her and her sister.
Her and her sister, portrayed by Lori Petty. Basically, like Steven said, during World War II, there was no baseball because most of the baseball players served in the armed forces. Not just like nobody players. Like the big players also served. I know Ted Williams served in the armed forces, but they decided in the absence to make their own league, but it would be a women's league, and they're going around recruiting women to be in this league, and they end up recruiting the Dottie Hinson character and her sister Kit, portrayed by Lori Petty, and basically Gina Davis is just a woman who is good at baseball, but she's kind of just waiting at home for her husband to come back. It's a very simple story from that perspective, but there's so much else going on in this movie. It's, like I said, it's a character journey for her, but it's also a sense of identity and self-worth and self-expression that a lot of women at the time were not able to do. A lot of them were stuck in this traditional role of mothers and wives, and that is about it. Men were the predominant gender in the society. They're the ones who work. They're the ones who go off to war, although women did serve in World War I and World War II, so I'm not really quite sure how that worked, but all I know is that in this film, we see Dottie go through an interesting character journey, and I really like her relationship with the Jimmy Dugan character. It was really nice and really refreshing to see a platonic relationship between a man and a woman in a mainstream Hollywood movie. We hardly ever get that. It's always romantic every single time. But this one is different. This one is just a respect that is earned by both of these characters with one another. They both realize the inherent value in each other as human beings. Granted, the Jimmy Dugan character is kind of a self-loathing drunkard, which is something she's trying to get him out of, and kind of be the manager of this team and kind of be the figurehead that I think the team needs. And she is also kind of running the team on her own, but she's also kind of dealing with a lot of emotions, especially when it comes to her sister, who is actually traded halfway into the movie to another team. And it's a whole sibling rivalry thing because she is the older, more well-known, more, I would say, more sought after character in the film, especially when it comes to the recruiting. They come to get her. They don't come to get her sister. She just happens to be a package deal, and it's really interesting how sibling rivalries go, especially not only as kids but as adults as well. It kind of never really ends. There's a lot of peace in it, but it never really ends. And this film, I think, is an important film, not only from its feminist message, but it's a great sports movie. I mean, it's a great historical sports movie. It touches on a time in sports history that no other film ever really touches on, which is kind of surprising to me because A League of Their Own is so revered as a classic that you'd think there would be more movies about this era or about women's sports movies. They would be more popular, but they're not. It's kind of just everyone remembers A League of Their Own, and everything else is kind of just forgotten, unfortunately. So, yeah, A League of Their Own is just a great film. The Dottie character is great. Gina Davis is great in this role, as well as the other characters that are in it. I mean, we have, character portrayed by Madonna. We have character portrayed by Rosie O'Donnell. This is a really good cast of female actresses that we don't get to see on screen together a lot. So yeah, that is my number one. It's something that a film that I go back to a lot and revisit a lot.
Yeah, it's a great film. It's it's one of those iconic characters for Tom Hanks and Gina Davis. You did a top 5 with Gina Davis, it might be number 1 on a lot of folks' lists. So, all right, Steven, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is my favorite baseball movie, and my favorite character. Now, when I, going into this, I made sure I asked. I was like, so do these characters have to be literal baseball players? And I kind of got the impression that they didn't have to be. They just have to be in a baseball movie. And this character is not a baseball player. He might have played baseball in his life, but, he's not really a player in the movie. Field of Dreams, Ray Costello, Kevin Costner is my – that's the character of the movie. I mean, it's about a father and a son. I think I've talked about this movie before in another podcast, but – the character of Ray Costello is just got so much going on in it. And it's, you go through his eyes through this whole movie of trying to figure out what this voice is saying to him in a cornfield. And it's just fantastic. This movie is beyond being a great baseball movie. It transcends it. It's just a great film. It got nominated for Best Picture of the Year. And it's just, yeah, I love this movie. There's so much, I love father and son stories. And then by the end of the movie, spoilers for a movie that came out in 1989. At the end, we find out that it was really his father that was speaking to him the whole time. And he has a catch with him at the end. They play catch. And it just comes down to that simple thing of playing catch that is all he wanted to do with his dad again, just to play catch with him one more time. And it's such a touching movie. I get the feels talking about it right now because I love the movie so much. And it's just something that goes back for me because I played baseball as a kid. Having catch with my dad is something that used to be a big deal. Just being able to get my dad outside to play catch. And I just think that the character's got so much layers to it. And Costner's so good at being charismatic, but also being kind of just like, what the hell is going on? Like just weirded out by the situation. I mean, if I was in a cornfield, I had somebody whispering to me and I had to figure out, I was like, why can't you just tell me what you want me to do? Stop giving me like, cryptic puzzles, like just tell me what you want me to do. And then, yeah, it's just he's great. The film is awesome. I can't say anything else. My number 1, Ray Costello, Field of Dreams.
Great choice. Absolutely great choice. Yeah. I mean, there's so many great characters in baseball films, not just the people that are playing baseball in the baseball films. And like you said, I mean, it's one of the greatest movies of all time. It has some of the greatest memorable moments of all time, Field of Dreams. And, I'll be talking about it very soon on my other show that I'll be hosting called Upon Further Review. So it's a great choice for you to bring up on the list, Steven. My number 1 is I decided to go with actual baseball players, and most of mine are real life baseball players. And Andrew knows I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. I'm a huge Red Sox fan, but a movie that really moved me growing up and a story about a realistic baseball player is the story of Lou Gehrig. And they actually have a disease called Lou Gehrig's disease based off of this disease that Lou Gehrig went through. Now, Lou Gehrig was one of the all-time great baseball players of his era. He played on the New York Yankees with Babe Ruth. And in this movie, Pride of the Yankees, he's portrayed by Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper plays Lou Gehrig, and the actual Babe Ruth is in the movie as well. Babe Ruth plays himself, obviously, and This is a story about a man who's just he comes up, he's like a huge star, and he's going to be the next coming of Babe Ruth. He's going to be the next great thing. Well, him and Babe Ruth are on the same team, the New York Yankees at the same time. Except he comes down with this debilitating disease, and this cuts his career short. But what I loved about, not only do I love that, all the story about Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and the New York Yankees and so on, is a moment near the end of the film, before the film ends. He has to tell the Yankee fans, he has to tell the world as a whole, that he has to give up the game of baseball, the game that he loves, and he knows how much this means to the Yankees and whatnot. That but this is like the dream of a lifetime for him to be able to play the game of baseball, and that it's sad that he has to quit and give up this game that he loves so much. And it's an iconic moment in sports. You could look it up, this speech that he gives. Gary Cooper, phenomenal job as Lou Gehrig in Pride of the Yankees. And it's my number one sports movie of all time. Even though I'm a Red Sox fan, I get tears in my eyes every time I watch that scene of him telling the world that he has to give up the game of baseball because of this disease that he has. And I know this is kind of a sad moment, me talking about a movie about a guy dying from a disease that we all know now is Lou Gehrig's disease. It's Parkinson's disease. People like Muhammad Ali have got it. Michael J. Fox has got it. And it's just such a sad moment in the movie, but it's such a great film. And it doesn't matter what era films come, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. This film came out in the 1950s, and it's a great film. It doesn't matter if it's black and white and tells the story of baseball players from the 1930s and whatnot. It still can be a great movie with great actors. If you don't know who Gary Cooper is, I suggest you go out and look for his filmography. Films like High Noon and Sergeant York are two of his most famous, along with Pride of the Yankees. Gary Cooper is one of the best actors of his era, and he's phenomenal in this film as Lou Gehrig. So that's my number one. Lou Gehrig, Pride of the Yankees. And going back to Andrew, you got some honorable mentions, Andrew?
Yeah, well, before you say that, yeah, I had a feeling that your number one would be Pride of the Yankees. But yeah, Lou Gehrig's disease is not Parkinson's disease. That's something completely different.
It's ALS.
Lou Gehrig's is ALS. Parkinson's is different. ALS it's a degenerate disease that basically your body's slowly shutting down. Parkinson's is a disorder that affects like your ability to move and stuff like that. Your nervous system and stuff like that. It's a little different. I mean, I remember, if everybody remembers the Ice Bucket Challenge from a few years ago, that was to raise money for ALS/Lou Gehrig's disease. But yeah, in terms of honorable mentions, there are a few. I mean, a lot of the stuff that you guys mentioned, of course, those are all would be honorable mentions for me. But character Willie Mays Hayes from Major League is great. Pedro Serrano is great. Jimmy Dugan, like Steven mentioned, is great. Even though I don't particularly think the film is great, Kevin Costner's Billy Chapel from For Love of the Game is a good character. But yeah, there are so many to go. I'm pretty sure Dan has a million of them. So I'll let you guys talk.
You take that back. For the Love of the Game is a great. No, I'm just kidding. It's okay.
It's a good movie. It's not a great movie.
It's okay. It's an okay movie. I know it's an okay movie. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Costner alone has done a few baseball movies with Bill. Of course, Bull Durham also is a really good one. His character in that. A couple other ones I'll bring up is names escaping me, but the main character from The Rookie, played by
Dennis Quaid.
Is a great that's a great Disney baseball movie based on a true story. And the other one, I love the movie 61 with Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle's story. You got
Barry Pepper.
Pepper, and I'm just losing names tonight.
Punisher.
The Punisher, yeah, his name's the Punisher.
Tom Jane.
Yeah, Thomas Jane as Mickey Mantle. There's a scene in that movie near the beginning that I always crack up about. I still remember it, where like Mickey Mantle's sitting there with like Whitey Ford, and they're like looking at a nude magazine, and he's just like, it's like, look at that girl. He's like, she's great. He's like, and then Mickey Mantle's like, you know what? I don't like her. Her hands. I like girls with smaller hands. Makes my dick look bigger. I always love that scene.
Wow.
Billy Crystal directed 61.
Yes, he did. I like it. It's a fun movie. It's fun. I like it.
Oh, well, it's a great. I mean, how is Roger Maris not in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame along with Kevin Costner? That's another whole thing. I'm always going to fight for Kevin Costner to get in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. That's a travesty that he's not in there with two great all-time great baseball films, and then When It Was a Game, or was it For the Love of the Game, was another one, which is a really good baseball film as well. I do have a list of them. Another Robert De Niro character in a baseball film is he plays a character by the name of Gil Renard. You know, when you're a sports fan, sometimes you can go a little bit above and beyond the fandom, and you can be a little bit of a stalker. And that's the Gil Renard character. He stalks the Barry Bonds-like character of Wesley Snipes for the San Francisco Giants in The Fan. I'll tell you what, that's a twist on a baseball movie. The Fan is a twist on a baseball movie. Another one I like that's an understated baseball film with the character Miguel Sugar Santos in the film Sugar, played by Algenis Carranzo. I can't read my own writing.
Wow.
I can't read my own writing. Carranzo.
We can't help you with this one.
Baby Bernstein, played by John Hamm in $1 Million Arm, as a character I really enjoyed a lot. I got a lot of the ones that you guys did talk about. You know, I had the Walter Matthau. Okay, I had the Jackie Earl Haley character, the Ricky Vaughn from. I have so many of these. Another real life baseball player, played by Anthony Perkins. We all know him from Psycho, but he played a real life Boston Red Sox player named Jimmy Pearsall in Fear Strikes Out. He gets hit in the head by a fastball, and he is not the same after that, and he ends up having to quit the game of baseball once again. Another real life story about a baseball player that quit the game because of basically an injury. He had head injuries after getting hit in the head by this baseball. So Fear Strikes Out, Jimmy Pearsall, Anthony Perkins, and of course the James Earl Jones character from Field of Dreams. We talked about the Kevin Costner character in Shoeless Joe Jackson, but I love the James Earl Jones character from Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann, who's a black league baseball player who's kind of a recluse, and the Kevin Costner character has to go talk to him about his father and stuff like that. And it's a lot of really good dialogue back and forth between Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones. Am I right or wrong? Is James Earl Jones also in Sandlot or no?
Yes, he's the blind man that has the dog.
Yeah, so he's in a couple great baseball films with cameo kind of supporting roles in them. So James Earl Jones doesn't just play Darth Vader or the voice of Darth Vader.
He's also Akeem's father in Coming to America.
Yeah. Oh, geez, Coming to America. Here we go. We got
Coffee Gopher.
We get Stephen talking about Coming to America. The show should end right there. So Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions.
And Steven.
You can find me watching Coming to America, making sure I tell Dan I'm watching Coming to America. Also, you can find me Film Club on Facebook. You can find me YouTube, Film Club Central. You can find me on the Stardust app, Movie Man 16.
And you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also, other shows that these two gentlemen and myself host are called the 52 Must-See Movies and Why They Matter. I think he's doing a Darth Vader there, if I'm not mistaken. And we just posted an episode with these two guys called Winchester 73. So that went up yesterday. And next week we're doing, I don't know if Steven's going to be available for this one. We might have to change the day that we're doing it, and so he can do it. If he can't, no big deal. But it's Halloween. It's the weekend of Halloween, even though Halloween's on a Tuesday. It's going to be Halloween weekend, I think. And
Okay.
I believe
2 weeks.
That's the following weekend.
And right now, I don't have a topic for next week. So
Anticlimactic. Oh boy.
2 weeks from now, we definitely got a topic for 2 weeks from now. I do not have a topic for this coming week, so I have to come up with the topic, or we might have to skip a week, one or the other. I have to see what we can do. But so no, as of right now, I do not have a topic for next week, so I can't talk about that. But very soon, my new show called Upon Further Review will be starting, where we're going to take sports movies. We're going to just delve into these sports movies that have come out in the past. And, you know, the very first one we're going to talk about, I have a guest co-host with me, a radio personality in the state of Tennessee, who's a radio man in Tennessee. We're going to talk about Field of Dreams. That's Jim Steele and I are going to be doing Field of Dreams. So that should be coming up very, very soon. That'll be the first episode of Upon Further Review. And then we'll be doing those hopefully very succession after that, very quickly after that. So for Stephen and Andrew and myself, good night.
Day will come.